Hey everyone! Hey, today we are learning how to look at equations for solving them, and we're actually going to learn to draw them. So you can see on the bottom of the screen down there the equation. I'd like you to go ahead and write that in your notebooks, and I'm going to do it too. I'm going to just start writing this. And we're going to learn, before we start solving these, we're going to learn how to do this with drawing pictures. And that's what our goal today is, to learn how to look at this as pictures, as almost like physical things put on a balance scale. So notice how I'm drawing this. Make lots of space. Notice how I'm not scrunching anything up. I'm coming across my whole notebook. I'd like you to do the same. And then we're going to show some invisible things in here. Okay, so we've drawn the equation, and then the next thing I'd like you to do is there's some invisible things that we're going to work with in here. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw, and so I'm going to use green whenever I'm invisible in my class. You see green, it's not something that's really there, but I want you to see it, right? So there's a green line, and the reason I've got this side and the other side, and it creates a balance. Now there's a couple other things. There's a number in front of that n, and I'm going to go ahead and write it in here. It's a 1. That's actually a 1, and I've got it in green because it's invisible, right? But let's make sure that we understand it's actually there. And then I see another one right here. This is also 1n, and so let's draw that invisible 1 in there. All right, next, so let's draw this. We're going to draw numbers, positive numbers, in a box. So I'm going to draw it like this. I'm going to put this in a box because it's a number. And I'm not going to do the addition sign. I'm actually like putting physical pieces on this balance scale, and that 3n is actually 3 n's. And when I have a variable, I'm going to draw it as a triangle, and I'm going to color it in, because if I've got a negative 1, I'm going to not color it in. And so we see this as 3 n's, and I draw it like this. Then I'm going to do something else invisible. I want you to draw this bubble around here, because we see this as subtract 2 n's or take away 2 n's, but we're going to think of it differently as actually having 2 negative n's. And so I'm going to draw these like this, not colored in. See how I did that? Because it's actually 2 negative n's. And then this one here, 1n, I draw it like this, color it in. And then I say, and on the other side, right? I've got this balance scale. And on the other side, what I have is 1n, so I'll draw it like this, and a 5. And I'm going to do numbers in a cube. I'm going to do negative numbers drawn in a circle. And I'm actually going to go ahead and draw a line like this with a little pivot point here to show you that this is like perfectly balanced, right? I've got the left side and I've got the right side. It doesn't look balanced, but we know because of that equal sign that this equation's balanced, that the stuff on this side weighs the exact same as the stuff on this side. So, moving on, again, I'm going to go to my invisible marker, and I'm going to note that these positive 2x's and those negative 2x's, positives and negatives, make 0. And this part is called combining like terms. And so I'm going to draw a little arrow like this saying I'm taking these off, because I know those 2 positives and those 2 negatives coming from additive inverse from 7th grade, they equal 0. And so this arrow means, hey, take it off the scale. It weighs 0. I can remove it. And now I'm going to redraw this balance scale again. So I'm going to go down here. I've got the left side and the right side. And I'm going to reorganize what I have here. I'm going to throw in my x's first, and see, I got 1, 2 x's. So I'm going to draw my x's like this. They're positive, so I have to color them in. And a 4. And on the other side, I have 1x and a 5. So I'm looking at this up here, which is rather complicated. But after I draw it and I remove, I combine the like terms, I come up to something that looks a whole lot more simple. So now we're going to do another step, and what we want to do is called isolate the variable, and I'm going to have you write some vocabulary here for me. Isolate the variable. And let's talk about what that means. And so really what that means is get letters on one side. Go ahead and write that in your notes. And like, so what do you mean by that? Okay, well, I got this as an n, two n's and an n here. I got n's on both sides. And our goal when we say isolate the variable means get the letter, the variable, only on one side. And so I'm going to pick the side that has more, right? Which side has more n's? This one. It has two n's right now. And this has one n. And I'm going to do something really cool. And I'm going to add a negative n, and I'm going to do it in red so you can see that I've changed something to this. I'm going to add a negative n to both sides. And see, it'll still stay balanced because I've got the left side, the right side are the same. And now I can take my invisible marker. I can show that since that equals 0, it's off the scale. Since this is 0, it goes off the scale. And look what happens. So now I'm going to redraw the scale what I have. This is like a balanced scale here. There's the pivot. And now what I have is on the left side, since that's gone, it was 0, I only have one n and a 4. And so I'm going to draw in here. I've got one n, colored in because it's positive, and the 4, put it in a square so we know it's a number. And on the other side, well, those are gone. All I have is a 5. Now this problem is looking really easy. In fact, we know that this is going to equal 1 at this point because 4 and 1 makes 5. We know that. But now we're going to do the same trick that we did up here. We're going to add a negative 4 to both sides. And why would that be? Is because this next step of isolating the variable, get the letters on one side all alone. And I'm going to do a negative 4 on both sides. And notice it's in a circle because it's negative. And now I can go with my invisible marker, and I know that opposites add to 0. So again, this thing here, I'm taking it off my scale because it disappears. And this one here, I'm going to take off because a 5 and a negative 4, I know that when I put those together, I'm actually going to get a 1. And it's positive. So this is my thinking, right? I'm doing it invisible in green because I know that's what it means. So watch as I redraw the scale again, and I get my final answer. Pivot. On this side, all I have is 1x. I say x, but this letter's n, right? I mix those up. So I've got an n, and on the other side, I have a 1. 5 and negative 4 makes 1. And so I've just solved this equation. And I'm going to come down and write my final answers that the n equals 1. And I'll put my answer in a box. So I'm going to put up another example. And before you watch the video how to do it, I'd like you to try and do it on your own. And check yourself. How close can you get to doing this? All right, thanks for watching this. I hope this helped.